Challenge Roth, one of the biggest, most iconic triathlons in the world. 3.8 kilometer swim, a 180 kilometer bike, and a 42.2 kilometer run. 3,500 athletes, 250,000 spectators. A race I love, a race I have competed at many times, and I'm back to race it again. But this time, my preparation has looked a little different, a little limited. Why? Because I've signed up for Challenge Roth and trained just 1 hour a day for 6 months to see if it's possible.
I can't breathe.
And that's hard, because an iron distance triathlon is no joke. For pros, it's 8 hours of pain, and for everyone else, it's 10 to 17 hours of pretty much survival. And without proper training, it's pretty much impossible. So, is 1 hour a day enough? Can I get to the finish line? Can I live up to all this unexpected hype?
Doing an Ironman with only 1 hour training.
Will I blow up spectacularly, proving that shortcuts just don't work?
Legs are absolutely toast.
Well, let's find out. First, we had to define the rules. 60 minutes per day, no more. Commuting counts if it's biking or running. You can split it into 20 or 30-minute sessions, but totally no more than 60 minutes. And the hours don't accumulate. Use it or lose it. So a record temperature here, first time ever in Roth. No wetsuits. Just the advantage you need when you've done pretty much no swim training. So, why this challenge? Well, triathlon's always been a part of my life, but over time, life gets busier. Work, family, shifting priorities, and training slowly drifted into the background. I knew I needed something, a tough goal, a hard deadline, and I also needed it to fit around real life. And that's when I mentioned this idea to Rouvy, and they were all in. They've got the full Roth course and structured sessions that I could use to train smart, if not long. And it gave me a way to stay consistent and stay accountable and chase this thing properly. But this isn't just about me. Most triathletes are juggling life, work, kids, and trying to make it all fit with their triathlon goals. So while this might be an extreme version of minimal training, maybe, depending on how it all turns out, of course, we'll learn something useful about what's actually possible. And so my 6-month experiment begins. The swim's a simple out and back, down the canal, round a buoy, and back again. Sounds easy enough, but there's a catch. I'm starting in the sub-9 wave, mostly because I asked to and they put me in it. It's a double-edged sword. I might find some fast feet to follow, or I might get dragged into a pace I've got absolutely no business holding. It's a conundrum I'll have to manage, and fast, especially considering how much time I've actually spent in the water over the last 6 months. Well, in theory, I should have done about a third of my time swimming. But you see, the problem with swimming is threefold, really. Firstly, it's such a hassle. Like, if I want to go swim, I have to find a lane that's available in my local pool. I have to also be available at that same hour, which is rare. I then have to book that lane and pay for it. I then have to drive to the pool, swim, shower, drive all the way back. An hour swim takes like 2 hours out of my day. Secondly, there's the whole thing of like, how much benefit am I actually getting for this? Yes, obviously, if I swim, I'm going to get fitter, right? I mean, obviously. But how much benefit does that give me on race day? The swim comes first, I'm going to be fresh. I'm in no danger of not making it to the swim, through the swim. So all I'm really doing is getting out a little bit faster, maybe a couple minutes faster, and a little bit fresher, a little bit less tired. And when I put it like that, I kind of just go, well, the bike and the run is time better spent there. And then thirdly, I just don't really like swimming. So all of this adds up to, well, over the course of the total 180 hours of training, I've done a total of, I shudder to admit this, 7 hours and 36 minutes of swimming for less than 29 kilometers of swimming. And when you put it like that, I haven't done enough swimming, have I?
Despite all my doubts and it being a non-wetsuit swim to boot, I did manage to swim in a time of 1 hour and 1 minute.
It was a relief to get out the water, and I took T1 pretty conservatively. I actually didn't even put my shoes on my bike. I put them on in the tent and ran on the grass to my bike to take a conservative, not flying mount. And then it was out onto the bike.
Here we go. So, time to have some fun. I am currently pushing 290 watts though, which is optimistic. So I think I better tone down the excitement and slow down a little bit.
Well, you would think my biggest concerns would be my fitness, cramping, just the amount of suffering it's going to take to get through this whole thing. But actually, probably my biggest concern is holding my aero position. Obviously, I've done my turbo trainer, I've done sessions on Rouvy that were an hour long when I was on my aero bike and I was in my aero position as much as I could. But that was never more than an hour, and to be honest, even that, I don't think I ever made it to an hour. I always cheated at some point and sat up. So I haven't done that much time in my aero position. I haven't done any long sessions in my aero position. And I've seen the dangers of people being in an aero position that they can't hold, and then you sit up and you can't put any power and you're not aerodynamic, and your whole race kind of goes out the window. And that's before you even consider the fact that my neck could get so sore that I can't carry on. Like, it's a real danger, and it is actually probably my biggest concern.
The bike course at Roth is legendary. 180 kilometers over 2 laps of rolling terrain with around 1,500 meters of climbing. There are some punchy climbs, including the iconic Solara Berg, and long, fast sections of super smooth tarmac built for speed. I managed to practice this course many times on Rouvy, which was a huge help. In fact, Rouvy lets you pick up a route where you left off the last session, so I didn't have to ride just the first hour of the route every time I did an hour ride. I could slowly, over a few sessions, piece together the entire route. Being able to ride the real Roth route virtually meant I could get familiar with all the climbs and the pacing and where I was going to need to push. But to tackle it now, without the traditional training volume, I could still be in for a very tough day out.
I feel really comfortable. Heart rate's like 127, but worryingly, for the first 8 kilometers, my normalized power is over 300, and I am not fit enough to hold over 300 watts for 180 Ks.
So I'm going to pause here to take you through all the numbers that you're so interested in, of exactly what training I've done in the 6 months leading up to this event. So, since the 9th of January, I have done 179 hours, 16 minutes, and 28 seconds of training, averaging 6 hours, 53 minutes, and 43 seconds per week. How was that all broken down? Well, I already told you about this swim. A very paltry 7 hours and 36 minutes and 16 seconds for 28 kilometers, 780 meters in total over the entire 179 days. 17 minutes a week. Yeah. Anyway, the bike. I did 88 hours, 17 minutes and 39 seconds, covering a total of 2,686 kilometers. That was 49.24% of my total hours, or 3 hours and 19 minutes per week. Interestingly, you'll be interested to know my FTP from the beginning. I did an FTP test right in that first week, 295 watts. I did it again this past week, 330 watts. Yeah, I added 35 watts to my FTP just doing those 3 hours and 19 minutes a week. Then, moving on to the run. 77 hours, 53 minutes and 51 seconds, covering a total of 883 kilometers, 43.4% of my total training, almost exactly 3 hours per week of running. And then I also did strength, 5 hours and 28 minutes and 42 seconds of strength, just 3% of my total, but probably the most important 3%, to be honest, just averaging 12 minutes per week. But actually, I think probably those 12 minutes per week made the biggest difference. Now weight, from the beginning, 84.5 kgs, down to 80.7 after my last hard session. So yeah, didn't quite get below 80 kgs and nowhere near the race weight I used to race at, but significantly improved from where I started on the 1st of January.
Needless to say, it hasn't all been perfect prep. But I guess that's the whole point of this kind of experiment, right? All I had to do now was not go out too hard, keep my pace conservative, and not get sucked into racing.
About to exceed 1 hour on the bike, which would be my longest bike training session. So far, so good. Big group of guys just came past me, and I kind of like got sucked along, and my power just went up and up and up. So I had to let them go. Past 1/3 of the way, doing some maths in my head. Realistically, about 5 hours for the bike, if things keep going well. That's a big if. And maybe sub 10, all up. Anyway, we're coming up to the highlight of this whole thing, the Berg.
For anyone who doesn't know, the Berg at Roth is legendary. It's not just a hill, it's the hill. This is where thousands of spectators line the road, shoulder to shoulder, wheeling every rider up the climb. And if you've raced here before, you'll know exactly how I'm feeling, knowing that that is just around the corner.
So while I was going up to Berg, I passed a significant milestone. 3 hours since the race start, so triple my longest training session. So good time for a status update. Status, legs, a little bit tired, neck, starting to feel it. The shoulders in the aero bars, also starting to feel it. Nutrition, pretty good actually. In fact, if anything too good, I'm going through it too fast. But better that than not being able to go through it at all. So could always pick up more at the aid stations if I need to. Overall feeling, not much has changed. I'm moderately confident and also full of anxiety for what's to come.
Now well into the ride, it's time for me to settle in, not get carried away. But this feels like the right moment to address the elephant in the room. I've trained hard for this, and I'm racing as an age grouper. But here's the thing, I used to be pro. So you'd think I'd be fit, you'd think I'd be used to the pressure, the pain, and the pacing. But the truth is, I don't really know where I'm at anymore. I'm not who I was 5 years ago. And this isn't just a race. It's a test of whether all that training has actually worked, of whether I can still push when it really matters, I guess whether I really still belong out here.
Well, I get that people think that my job keeps me fit, and I was a pro for 12 years. I did nearly 50 of these things. And so they look at me and go, well, he's still fit. Got a job that requires me to do all kinds of challenges, so I stay fit. But the reality is actually pretty different. I was pretty unfit. Looking at my Roth training hub for the 6 months leading up to starting this, until December, I did a total of 121 hours, averaging 43 minutes a day. And that was my good training. Then December, I got really sick, didn't actually do anything for the entire month of December. Literally, there's not a single input in my training calendar. At the start of January, I was 84.5 kgs, which is the heaviest I've ever been. And I was definitely the least fit I have ever been.
I'm doing the endurance elevator session this time. It says it's 59 minutes long, and it'll elevate my endurance, which sounds like exactly what I'm gonna need. Might just do this every day from now until the race.
My training for the 6 months leading up to this is nothing but inconsistent and erratic. So I didn't start this with a ridiculous amount of fitness. I didn't start it feeling really confident that if you asked me to tomorrow, I could finish an Ironman.
Well, that's the first time, maybe ever, my FTP has been below 300. 299, but below 300. Work to do.
Doing an Ironman with only 1 hour training by day.
So I've passed halfway, 92 Ks, and I've just had a bit of a revelation.
Basically, I'd realized that not only had I not done more than an hour, I'd not done more than 100 Ks on the bike for a very long time. I cast my mind back and tried to figure out when last I went over 100 Ks on the bike. And since then, I've gone back through my training log to find out that in July 2024, I went over 100 Ks once. And in June 2023, I went over 100 Ks once. And before that, you had to go all the way back to the beginning of 2022 for the last time I hit triple figures on the bike. No wonder I was hurting so much.
We are really heading into the unknown as I start the second lap.
But even though I was tired, I was moving pretty well until I heard a tick, 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 tick from one of my wheels.
So I've got a flat tire. Brilliant. And it's the disc. Challenge accepted.
The whole process of removing the safety pin, changing the tire, and getting me going again, it took the better part of 12 and a half minutes, which is not a Formula One style pit stop. But I was just glad to be up and moving again. As I ticked over into what was hopefully the last hour on the bike, things were looking okay. Power-wise, I was still doing well. But position-wise, I was really starting to struggle. It turned out that I'd spent so much time now on my base bars that my hands were getting sore. And if I went down into my aero bars, my neck and shoulders were really sore. And on a time trial bike, you only have 2 positions, on your base bar or on your aero bars. And I had nowhere to hide.
Nick is very unhappy with me. Does not like me being in the aero bars, and is complaining constantly when I'm in the aero bars, and to be honest, complaining quite a lot when I'm not in the aero bars too. So that is, yeah, that's a thing. Other than that though, it's all going really well. Hey!
I'm not sure whether we had a tailwind or it was just the enthusiasm of getting near the end of the bike. But those last 10 Ks or so, I actually felt really good.
As I started ticking down the final kilometers of the bike leg, I couldn't help but think back to those freezing early morning sessions on Rouvy that started 6 months ago, when all this began.
Biggest gear gets pretty hard up some of the Roth climbs.
I was tired by this point, of course, but deep down, I knew that the consistency of my training had got me to this point. Still, I wasn't done yet. Not even close. There was still one small matter left, a full marathon.
Putting aside the back end of the run, which we always know is going to be painful from bitter experience, I think if I can get through the bike and get to T2, the thing I'm most worried about is getting off the bike and whether I can even run a step. I don't want to be walking out of T2, but that is a very real possibility because I haven't done a single brick session in the 6 months leading up to this, not one. And also, probably more importantly, I haven't done any 5 to 6 hour rides where you've got your lower back and your legs and your hamstrings used to that position so that you can get off and still use them. And so there's a very real chance that even if I do get through the whole bike, that I get off and I cannot run a step.
It's another late night one. Time to go get 45 minutes of running done.
Running is probably a discipline I've stayed the fittest in since retiring and having kids. Mostly because it's the easiest to squeeze in around life. But even so, back in January, I was in pretty poor shape. An easy hour left me shattered. Not just tired, but wiped out for days. An hour of running was hard. Once I started the program though, things changed pretty quickly. Running's easy to just throw your shoes on and go, and because of that, it's where I improved the fastest. By the end of February, I'd surprised myself with a sub 36 minute 10K. Not bad for 1 hour a day. I never reached a point where 1 hour of running felt easy, but I did build to holding a solid tempo for a full hour. My longest run was just that, 15.5 kilometers at what I hoped would be race pace. I also hit a 10 by 1K session in my race shoes, holding around 3 minutes 30 per K. Nowhere near marathon distance, but it did give me some confidence. Still, the truth is, I haven't run long, and now I've got 42.2 kilometers ahead of me, after swimming and biking. That's when we'll find out whether 1 hour a day really was enough, or whether it was never going to be.
2Ks into the run, time for an update. Things are looking bleak. 40Ks to go, and I'm in a world of pain.
Those first few steps on the run did not disappoint. They're about as hard as they could possibly have been. I felt awful.
I definitely didn't train enough with it. Hopefully it's just the brick legs, and I'll start feeling good in a moment. Right?
But I have to admit that as I hit those first few climbs, my legs felt so awful that I wasn't sure I was ever going to feel good again. And this could turn into a long run, or walk, as the case may be. I focused on getting my nutrition in and keeping moving, and I actually found a rhythm pretty quickly once I got onto the canal.
Happy time. Feel myself heading down into the well. Somewhere I've been before, and I am familiar with, but I haven't been there for a long time. Not this deep anyway. This is gonna hurt. All right, just past halfway. A little tactical walk. Always knew that the second half of the marathon was where the chickens were going to come home to roost, as the saying goes. And sure enough, yeah, the chickens are. Stomachs hurting, legs are absolutely toast. Actually, everything's hurting at this point. And any thoughts of a time or anything else are out the window. I just haven't done the deep, long endurance training that, you know, tempers your legs for this kind of duration. And I'm paying the price. We'll make it though. One foot in front of the other one.
I was now over 30 kilometers into the run, and I finally caught first sight of my super supporter.
We're back in action. Here he is. The main man.
Oh. Stopped to get a stone out the groove of my shoe and hamstring cramped. That's where we're at now. That's where we're at.
The run was proving to be just as much of a challenge as I'd feared. Even with all the training, those 1 hour tempo runs, the intervals, the daily grind, nothing quite prepares you for running a marathon after 180 kilometers on the bike. I was deep into it now, legs screaming, energy fading, but the end was very nearly in sight.
Found myself kind of in between the two outcomes that I'd predicted. I predicted either towards the end of the marathon, it would have all gone sideways and I would just be walking it in, basically. Or I'd be still going for a prime time and a really successful fast finish. I was kind of in between the two. I didn't want to slow down at all. I was still on for a decent time, but I wasn't going to set any records. It was just a case of getting to the finish line as efficiently as possible. Well, the race is done, and I survived it. I did 9 hours 42, a 101 swim, which was tough, a 5:07 bike with 12.5 minutes of a puncture, and a 3:29 run, which was a lot of suffering, but I made it through. So, what did I take from all of this? Firstly, consistency is key. Back on the wagon, back on the hour a day, and feeling okay again. I got a lot fitter just by doing an hour a day, just with an investment of 7 hours per week than I had been before this.
This weekend is home again, so I'll be watching that on telly and thought I'd rather it today. Well, an hour, but anyway.
I guess my overall conclusion from this entire experiment is that you can finish a full distance triathlon on just 1 hour of training a day. But I wouldn't recommend it.